Let's start from the beginning for the person who, is still has watched the trailer, but they're not quite sure. Tell us a little bit of the world of Bell.
Bellevue is an 8-part crime drama set in a small town in Canada. My character, Amy Ryder, is a detective, and we meet these people in a small community in the wake of a young transgendered athlete going missing, and the investigation that obviously kicks off around that, which is paralleled by this look back into Annie's past at this case that her father, who was also a police officer and was the chief of police, had ultimately, of a young teenager who'd been murdered, who, because he was unable to solve the case, had ultimately driven him to insanity, and he ultimately took his own life. And these cases are, in a number of ways, too coincidentally connected by too many different circumstances for Annie to not have to go back and look at what really happened around that case with her father. So it's sort of telling these two investigations going on at the same time. One is a sort of off the books one of her trying to figure out what really happened in her past, in her father's past, and obviously the pressing one of this missing child.
Television right now is such a competitive landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So many shows out there. What makes Bellevue like a great fit for WGN America?
Well, I think it's smart, intelligent programming with a complicated, female protagonist. I'm biased to that. Who is complicated and real and lovable and hateable in the same breath, and I think is just kind of fascinating to spend time with. And I think, really the thing with TV is, will people want to watch next week's? Well, I kind of dare you to watch one of these and not need to know what happens next. I think these characters in this world sort of sucks you in so quickly. So as far as, in a competitive landscape, the I gotta know what happens next factor is kind of crucial.
Talk a little bit about the character of Jesse.
So Jesse is a teenager in Bellevue who is recently sort of coming to terms with his gender identity, which is that he's female. He's transgendered. But Jesse, the male teenager that they all know, who is the star hockey player on the team and has this sort of bright, shiny future, is just not who Jesse is inside, and is starting to externalize and sort of take baby steps into sort of transitioning, and is met with so much hostility and resistance, and is so torn because obviously she is also a gifted athlete, but nobody's wanting her to be her. They want her to be Jesse, the boy who's going to be the bright, shiny hope of Bellevue. And, it's a very complicated and interesting role that Sadie plays beautifully, and that we learn more and more about this character, obviously, as we go into the investigation surrounding her having gone missing.
There's a little bit of an interesting tension between your character and Sean Demote's character.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be, I believe it's episode 3, where it seems like Annie starts to maybe question some things. And there's a scene where something's burning, and she sort of looks at him, and there's almost like something happened to her. Valerie.
Well, Sean's character, Peter, who's now the chief of police, was a young cop when her father was the chief of police, and was sort of, mentored by him and has mentored her. And so he's been part of her life forever. But he also is one of the only people who she knows will have more information about what really happened around her father's death. That clearly, as an 8-year-old, she doesn't have all the facts. But he was a cop then. He knew him. He must know more. And for the most part, she assumes that she can trust him. And then as she starts to pick further and further into the past, nobody's quite as clean and shiny as they look on the outside. And she starts finding out things about him, or having suspicions about him and his specific involvement in some of the events that took place. And, you know, when the people closest to you, you don't feel like you can necessarily even really trust them. Who can you? You know, it's sort of, I think that messes with your whole viewpoint as far as the earth literally just kind of like moves under you. And you're just like, I don't now know, if I don't know you, then I'm not sure if I really know anybody. And, you know, there's, that's a very interesting sort of dynamic sort of turning point, in their relationship.
You wear a lot of hats on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tell us a little bit about, you know, is this your first role as an exec producer, creator, or?
Jane and Adrian co-created the show. And then I came on as an executive producer. And I think that a lot of actors do executive producing in name only. I'm someone who really wants to be involved in the process. I want to know everything. I want to be part of all of the decisions. I want to be part of, you know, from casting to scripts to this to that, you know. And those two women are sort of like my creative soulmates. It turns out that I didn't know I had I have sister souls up in Canada who we just really got each other creatively. So as far as, you know, the material that already existed and the stories that had already been plotted out, and then input that happened, it was also organic as far as when things would change based on what then actually happened on set, as far as, oh, well, this plot line or this story or this thing is sort of evolving into its own slightly different thing from how we thought about it. We were always sort of on the same page about it already. We'd be like, and then we'd have a conversation. It was like, yeah, no. Like we know. Like it was like we'd already had the conversation without having the conversation. So that was really fun. I had a production company with my husband. We've produced a couple of things. I did something that I produced with my brother when I was much younger as well. I like being involved in the making of a project. I know there's plenty of actors who just want to memorize their lines, show up, stand on the spot, and go home, and they don't really care about the details, and that's perfectly fine. No disrespect. That's just not the way I approach my work. I like to have more information, and so that I found has been a very natural fit for producing.
To the person who maybe seen the trailer, we're like in January, the year's about to happen. Person who's seen the trailer, they've seen your social media, they've seen this interview, but they're still not quite convinced to watch the show. What would you say?
Give me 5 minutes of your life, and then I will steal hours of it, because you will be addicted to this show. You will watch the opening. Just watch the opening. Give it a few minutes. If you're thinking, oh, it's just a crime show, it's just a cop show, it is so complicated and so much more than that, and there's so much detail and sort of real human drama, and for all of the ugliness that can entail. And I just don't think anyone's gonna watch this and not find someone that they really connect to in this. So I dare you to watch it and not be hooked.